Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Star Season Lightworkers Collective. My name is Crystal, and we are finally here. As always, when you go live, there's always going to be those technical issues. So here we are. I hope you guys are looking forward to an amazing evening this evening. We have Mr. Thomas Sewid, who is going to be joining us this evening for a two-part series. This evening is part one, and he is the Sasquatch expert extraordinaire, and he's speaking to us from Forks, Washington. And he's speaking to us from a really well-known store called Sasquatch the Legend. And if ever you are interested in finding out more about the store, you can go to sasquatchlegend.com. But without further ado, we're going to introduce our guest, Mr. Thomas Sewid, who is a Sasquatch expert and an artist. And tonight he is going to be presenting us with a beautiful presentation, which will include native dress, as well as his friend of his who is right behind him. So, Tom, did you want to tell us about your friend behind you?
Kwakwaka'wakw, Danse. Greetings in my two bloodlines of the Kwakwaka'wakw from northern Vancouver Island. And Danse, which a lot of listeners will understand, comes from the Cree, and I'm part of the Mistawasis Cree from my mother from Saskatchewan. But I'm down here in Forks, Washington on the Olympic Peninsula. I've been here since April managing SasquatchLegend.com, and this is Biggie behind me. It's I guess you could say, our mascot for the store. We also are a museum for Sasquatch, so when people come in, they like to get a picture with Biggie behind me, and especially the people that follow me on social media and television. One of the movies I starred in, they like to come and get a picture of me with Biggie. So,
that's great.
Friendly guy, anyway.
So you just mentioned that you were in a movie, that you've done a show. Tell us more about what you've done, actually, regarding with the media and Sasquatch.
Well, I was a participant at the first ever Sasquatch convention in Canada, in Vancouver, in 1997 at the Planetarium. And I got to meet people I read about and saw a little bit on TV at the time, like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Grover Krentz, Peter Byrne, Dr. John Bindernagel, who at that time was a friend of mine anyway. And I went to this convention, and I was starstruck. Here's all these people that write books on Sasquatch and on documentaries. And next thing you know, Peter Byrne, who's he passed last year, but he was very famous going after Sasquatch and other animals. He invited me on the stage to share my First Nations, North American Indian beliefs, understanding, and perspectives when it comes to what we call Dzoonakwa, Sasquatch, and the Kwakwaka'wakw dialect from northern Vancouver Island, the Kwakwaka'wakw Nation. And I got a standing ovation. People were floored. They'd never had that depth of native knowledge and understanding about Sasquatch. And, to my tribe, the Kwakwaka'wakw, Dzoonakwa, the Sasquatch, is the highest ranked crest, and we have the depictions of females that come to life on the dance floors during Potlatch, and then we have the male Dzoonakwa mask that is used when a man becomes the chief at a memorial Potlatch for his father or a family member. So to me, it was, really neat to bring that in and be back in 1997 to be, sort of singled out as someone that had a lot of unique knowledge. Everyone else was, doing the same, what I call stumbling, bumbling, speculative, non-Indian accounts and speculation on what a Sasquatch is.
Okay.
And then, I went into a podcast, and I guess that was about 6 years ago, I guess. I went on one of the biggest ones out there called Wes Germer's Sasquatch Chronicles, and his switchboard erupted. A week later, he phoned me. He goes, "Tom, all my listeners want to hear more of you." So a month goes by, and we did some 7 or 8 different episodes, Sasquatch and smallpox and my other subjects based on Sasquatch that only I've been able to bring out because I have the knowledge, because I've been First Nations individual all my life, going to be 60 here in another week and a half. And word got out with my podcasting. I started to go on, get invited to conferences throughout United States, hosted one up in Vancouver Island a few years ago, myself with my team. And next thing you know, I get asked to be filmed at my cabins that look like little miniature ceremonial big houses. They're made of cedar, 8 by 10 foot. They're glorified garden sheds with native designs painted on the front that I did, where I used to do paddle with the orca whale, or maginach in our language, with kayaks when I had a tour operation quite a few years ago. And I went down and I filmed with them, no big deal. And the next thing you know, I thought it was just a documentary, and I've been on many documentaries from when I used to be a hunting guide, ecotourism operator in my abandoned native village for over a decade and a half. So I thought it was just another run-of-the-mill documentary. They're going to give me my minute and a half of glory. Next thing you know, they send me a link. The movie Bigfoot Girl is now out. You can watch it on these channels. I was like, holy, I starred in the movie. So I watched it. The movie storyline and plot is terrible.
Okay.
But you get a really good understanding of me out at what used to be my kayak camp, which is now my Sasquatch investigation camp, that we bring people to hopefully have a close encounter of the hairy kind with a Sasquatch, if the Sasquatch is willing to come close to us.
Okay, so so basically what I find interesting, and it's true, when you think about it, a lot of the documentaries that we usually see talk about, well, there was this picture from 1967, I think it was 67, and then they have a couple of pictures and then maybe a cast or 2 feet, and that's really about it. And you're saying you're bringing a lot more in-depth information. What kind of information? Because first, I'll be honest, I'm the first one to say I'm honest. I know of Sasquatch and Bigfoot and other and all that, but I'm not as well versed in the real background knowledge. For people like myself who are really a novice in this topic, what information based on your culture would you say you could share with us this evening? Just to sort of give us a little bit more information. Yeah, there you go. Okay.
That's, a ceremonial tunic that we use for Potlatch and other celebrations, feasts, even Canada, our National Aboriginal Day. And that's what I'm bringing is the Dzoonakwa, the highest ranked crest of the Kwakwaka'wakw and Lineage nations off of northern and eastern central part of Vancouver Island, across the islands of Johnson Straits into the mainland inlets, made up of 16 recognized tribal groups. But every chief and family, the chief will call a potlatch, be it for a marriage, a celebration of something, or a memorial potlatch for family members and the chief who'd passed. And at the potlatches, when you go there, you will see an account from an ancestor who came across a Sasquatch. So with my family, you'll see our Dzoonakwa mask, we have different ones, but here's one right here. You'll see the Dzoonakwa mask with fur regalia, the entire body of the performer coming out on the floor. They'll do an anti-clockwise circle before they enter the floor to depict what an ancestor saw. Okay. So after the anti-clockwise circle, with the batons being pounded on a hollow cedar log with 20 or more men singing in a deep baritone voice, they're bringing in song a story to life about an ancestor that witnessed Dzoonakwa, a Sasquatch. And the Sasquatch in my family will walk out, rub its eyes, yawn, because when a hairless bipedal human comes across a Sasquatch, the Sasquatches to me are the humans of the night. They're nocturnal. So in daytime, when you come across a Sasquatch, according to my family and some families' depictions and reenactments, is the ancestor woke up the Dzoonakwa. That's why it's rubbing its eyes and yawning. And as it goes around the central fire in anti-clockwise, you'll see it sometimes reach out, and then you'll see them go like that. And what my family's doing is representing the bad, misbehaving children that when you are young, and you do it to your children as well and grandkids. I don't have grandkids, but my children I did. And I remember being told, Tommy, you behave yourself. Dzoonakwa is watching, the wild woman of the woods. She's not allowed to touch you, but if you misbehave, act up, don't do your chores, fight, pull a temper tantrum, she's going to come at night and with big hairy arms, she's going to reach in and grab you where you're
Mm-hmm.
sleeping. She's going to put spruce tree sap in your eyes so you can't open them, you're blind. And she's going to throw you in that basket. And she's going to take you deep into the forest, up the mountain to her invisible home. That's why we can't find Dzoonakwa, the Sasquatch. And she's going to boil you up and eat you. So you behave yourself. Dzoonakwa's watching. It was our boogeyman. He
Oh,
still
right.
is to this day.
Well, that's pretty
And
cool.
when you're a young kid in Alert Bay, where I was born and raised for my first 7 years, I remember looking up and going, oh no, the sun's going down. It's getting dark. And I'm running down the street. And I get to the shipyards and I sneak by the building and I look. And there's the graveyard with Dzoonakwas, puckered up lips, outstretched arms, big breasts, carved in the base of memorial poles for
Mm-hmm.
chiefs who'd passed away. And there was like 4 or 5 of them still to this day in there. And I'm like, oh no, Dzoonakwa's going to get me. And I'm running down the street and my family member pulled up and get in, Tommy. What are you doing? It's dark. You got to get home. I'm crying away. So that's my earliest recognitions of Dzoonakwa, but also going up the hill to the where the world's tallest totem pole was being carved. And there is the Gyuksi, the big house of the Numgeese and other Kwakwaka'wakw tribes that would use it for potlatch. And you would go in there for a potlatch or they perform for the cruise ships, small cruise ships that would come in the summer, and we'd go in there and you'd see in the potlatch or the performance for the tourists, you'd see the Dzoonakwa being danced with the mask and the regalia, some with baskets on their back, some with a baby, a young child in regalia. So every family has a different account, and that's what I'm educating people about. But most of all, I'm telling them, I've always been eager for knowledge. I was teased and ridiculed as a young boy because I had big black frame glasses, hair out the ear, black, and I was chubby. And I would always be picked on. And they would call me Dilton Doyle from the Archie comic books. Always got your head in the book. And Tommy, 10,000 questions, shut up. And, it was just the way I was. And, I would go and sit with my grandparents. My grandfather is very famous, Order of Canada member, the late Chief James All Sewid. And I would go to his house where we lived, and he would invite all of the different elders from different families from the Kwakwaka'wakw Nation. And they'd all be sitting there having tea and cookies and things. And I didn't speak Kwakwala, but I would ask Dada, ask Datsa about if they have Dzoonakwa up in Kinkum, the Jawadena territories. My grandfather would talk to that man or woman and then translate to me about what they just said about their Dzoonakwa. And of course, it was always to scare me because I was a young boy. But that's the way I was. And then when all of a sudden I went to the movie when I was probably 12 years old in Vancouver when I was living there, and Leonard Nimoy was narrating a movie, Unsolved Mysteries or something. And it was about Loch Ness Monster and the Mayan calendar and UFOs. And then all of a sudden, Paddy, the Roger Patterson 1967 film of Paddy the Sasquatch. And I was just floored. And then they interviewed some other people about Sasquatch. And I went to the libraries and the bookstores. And that's when I started to, you know, delve into what this creature, Sasquatch, and as you notice, I'm not using the B word to describe the Dzoonakwa Sasquatch because I respect them so much. I don't think they should be called big and then as it ends. It's very derogatory, and we must always respect the Dzoonakwa, so we call them by the proper names, not that B word. I don't do that. Yeah.
In
And
turn, oh, okay.
yep, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, I just wanted to know in terms of the Dzoonakwa, I wanted to know when did the stories begin for your people? Like, what was the first recollection, like historical recollection of the Dzoonakwa for your people? How did that begin, and when are the stories,
Well,
the native stories?
according to our creation stories, the transformer came and transformed animals it came across in its journey as it flew around the world into human beings, which we refer to in our families as Nuyum, our first ancestor. My first ancestor is the Kulus, the cousin of the Thunderbird, white feathers and down feathers, blue flecks throughout its beak, and feathered white horns, and it used to stand on a mountain above the ancestral village of Absagu and on Guilford Island. And when Transformer came, that told the Tolus to fly on the beach, and he did his magic drumming and singing, and then he told the Kolus, grab your chest down and rip it open. And that's what the Kolus did. And out walked, my grandfather said, a very sweaty man, because our Noyum was living in the Kolus. And he said it's like living in a sleeping bag. That's why he came out sweaty. And Transformer asked him, what is your name? I will take the name Sewid, meaning paddling towards a chief, giving potlatch. So that is my Nuyum. That's where I come from, thousands upon thousands of years ago. As for the Dzoonakwa, I'm sure there's a Kwakwaka'wakw or a Lechwata family that can tell you their story, which I have no title and right to talk about, how their ancestor maybe was a Dzoonakwa. I don't know. So in answering your question, how long has it been going? Since the dawn of our creations.
If I understand correctly, because I want to make sure that I'm not disrespecting the ancestors, but so the Dzoonakwa, they came from the transformer, and then
no, they were a creature that was always here. Apparently, okay, from what I heard.
Okay, so they were always here.
I think maybe, like I say, the Dzoonakwa transforming into a human, if it took place, is not in my Tildas, my box of treasure.
Okay,
we do not have that story in my family's box of treasure, so I have absolutely no right to speak about it.
I understand. Okay.
It belongs to another family, possibly.
Okay, that's great. So then let's sort of move on. I guess we'll sort of go forward in time. And so let's say, for example, either in the 19th or 20th century, when did people start to take pictures? Did have people taken pictures of Dzoonakwa? In your area, like in the area where your people are from?
Yeah, I have the record for the longest video of a Sasquatch to date. About 4 or 5 years ago, we were on a yacht with some other Sasquatch investigators, and one of the guys called me and said, Tom, you better come on back deck. And he's on TV. His name is Adam Davies. And so anyway, I went in the back deck and I grabbed the FLIR night vision. And I looked, and there was something, heat signature on the beach at half tide rising, about 10:30 at night. It stood up. You can see the legs moving. It squatted down again. So we all took turns looking at through the different FLIRs we had. Pardon me, but I had the wherewithal to grab my cell phone and hold it up and record video with the FLIR. And we captured 16 minutes and 40 seconds of that Dzoonakwa Sasquatch out on the beach. We had just finished clam digging some 2.5 hours beforehand, so I knew that the shellfish beaches were now covered by water rising, and half tide where it was at was all boulders on a steep beach. And I'm thinking, what the heck is it eating? We don't hear boulders being rolled over, so it's not eating the little crabs underneath. And so the next day when we went and truthed the beach, we saw that it was eating china hats, limpets. They look about the size of a loonie or a silver dollar, and they stick to the rocks. And they're a mollusk. They move around and they eat algae and that off the rocks. But where that Sasquatch was, there was no big ones the size of a loonie or a silver dollar. They're all the size of your pinky nail. So that's what that Sasquatch was eating. And I captured on Vancouver Island up at eastern side, north of Sewid, Campbell River. I captured on a trail camera where my trail camera, I stuck in a rotten cedar stump. I dug a hole, put the trail camera in there, and we went back some 3 months later to get it. And I looked at the stump and I'm like, hey, where'd my camera go? Someone must have stolen it, I thought. But as I walked up to the stump, I could see it lying on its back on the moss. And I could see big impressions in the moss where something had walked. And right away, I'm thinking, maybe a bear, or maybe elk, double hoofing. But as I got closer, it was an elk. And I grabbed the camera and I went through the card, and you see where it had been hit. You can see a blur. You could see it where it was lying. It's on its back being spun because the trees were spinning. and above. And then the last picture is a Sasquatch leaning down with its right arm, reaching into my camera. And I was like, wow, finally bagged and tagged the Sasquatch.
Great. And if I may ask, actually, I have a comment here from Thomas Hackett. He says, "So the premise of the presence of the Dzoonakwa in the arts and culture of the native peoples of these lands suggests that there have been many sightings over the years by these tribes." Would you agree with that,
Oh,
Tom?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I said, every family, like for an example, there's a mask in a museum, beautiful Dzoonakwa. Some say it's a Bokwus, but I was told by the elder that actually was a young boy in the village and knew the carver. He said that the carver went out clam digging, and it was a daytime low tide, which is kind of rare, mostly at night. So anyway, this guy jumped in a canoe and he went out for, this was back in the late 1800s, goes out, and all of a sudden they heard something. And as they went around the corner, they looked, and there on the beach was a big covered in brownish hair. Click. What it was doing was picking choli, what we call cockles. It's a type of shellfish, but you can't stick a knife in them. They have no opening. So you have to smash them together and eat them raw, or you boil them, steam them, and eat them like that. But anyway, that Sasquatch was smashing cockles, eating. It looked up, saw them, stood up, boom, walked into the trees. That guy went home back to Mimkamlis, my village, Village Island of the Mamliaka tribe, and he grabbed a chunk of cedar and it adds, and he started adzing away, carving, and he carved what he saw. That's why I call that mask in the museum Kodak, because he couldn't afford a Kodak camera back in the 1800s, and he went home and he carved. Because the times that I've seen Sasquatch up close, it has a pronounced philtrum. The distance between your upper lip and the bottom of your nose is very pronounced. It has bigger jawline than us because it puckers its lips way up when it's whooping and making its noise. And so to me, that mask shows me that that man saw what I've seen and he carved it.
Pretty interesting. So, moving on, in terms of, I've heard stories where people say that some people have had, how should I say, relationships, but not relationships in terms of personal relationships, but they have had I can't say the word friendship, but a relation in terms of like they've seen them, they come to visit. Would you say that they're members, or would you say that your particular people have had a close relationship with the Dzoonakwa? Like, if is it just like you just observe them, or have you had a relationship where you see them and you talk to them and you communicate with them? What is your relationship exactly with the Dzoonakwa, your people's relationship?
That's what I said to my family's helicom chief speaker when he was alive, Adam Dick, chief that the book The Owl Called My Name was written about, and it would become a movie. And he was the main character in The Owl Called My Name when he was young. But anyway, Uncle Adam, I went to him. I said, Adam, Dzoonakwa keeps approaching, coming close to me out in the bush. He scares me. What should I do? I know I'm not supposed to harm him or anything, and I always got a gun, but I'm not going to hurt him. He goes, oh, just speak Kwakwaka'wakw to them. They understand. Some of our people used to interact with them. Some of the tribes, they've had people that would interact with them. He said, when we were in Kinkum, when I was a young man, we went up the river with a dugout canoe, cedar, with an outboard motor. The outboard motors just came out then. Oh, we went up the river to where the water's shallow, and we had a cabin there, a smokehouse, and we gave a young guy came with us, and I gave him a wooden box with a big pot of soup that the ladies had made us when we left that morning. I said, you go up, as we're unloading the boat, you go up to the cabin, start the fire, and put that pot on there so we have warm meal in a few hours. All of a sudden, that young kid come running down. Come on, quick, get in the boat. We got to get out of here. What do you mean getting out of here? We got to catch and smoke fish. When I got up to the cabin, there was a big Dzoonakwa sleeping beside it. It sat up and looked at me and went, yo. And Kwakwaka'wakw, yo, means hello, how you doing? I don't know who you are. And then you answer, "Ich, man, I'm doing fine." And so anyway, Adam said, "I'd be afraid of no Dzoonakwa. They're probably gone anyway." So they went up there, and sure enough, no Sasquatch, but they went about their business. So as the years progressed, in my interviewing of other native tribes, and I've been to Omaha Indian Reserve, I'm invited there for investigating of Sasquatch and helping them with tourism analysis for their territories. But while I was there, we saw a pregnant female Sasquatch with this big 7.5 foot mate male walking across a freshly planted soybean field with our night visions flares. And that was amazing. But I met a woman who was the medicine lady for the tribe. And because she had a bad leg and a young little boy, and she was bringing empty containers to get water from the spigot in the cabin campground where the tribe put me up. Well, I ran out and it just finished raining. There was a big ditch puddle between her vehicle and the spigot. I said, "Ma'am, you just give me those things. I'll fill them up with water for you." So I did. And, of course, given that nice gesture. And she goes, "Oh, I've heard about you. I hear you come from the coast to come help our tribe." I said, "Yes, ma'am." So we started talking, and all of a sudden her young boy looked at me. "Have you seen the big hairy man?" I said, "As a matter of fact, I did. Night before last, I was driving out of here to go look around. I didn't want to tell him I was Sasquatch investigating with night vision scope. And that house over there, it looks like an igloo. Oh, that's me and Mom's house. Our trailer burned, and the chief, they gave us that house to live in. It was a real funky looking house." And I said, "Yeah, I saw a big hairy man, all right, but I had his pregnant wife." And that woman kind of smiled, and we got to know one another and talk. Here, being the medicine lady, I started asking her questions. Over the course of a few days, she spent more time with me because she seen that I was wanting to find understanding of the Sitonga, what they call the Sasquatch, keeper of the medicine. That's what Omaha called. And that's when I asked her, after she's teaching me all this stuff, she said that reason why those two Sasquatches were walking across the soybean field to my house is because I put out bannock and fish or chicken, bread, and I go out and I pick medicinal plants from the root right to the tip of the plant, branches, whatever. I put it on a table where the offering of food is. And at night, the Sitonga comes and might pick off the buds, the flowers, the leaves, peel the bark or the roots, and then it pushes everything else off the table on the ground. And what's left on the table from 1, 2, or 3 different plants tells me that that part of the plant is used for medicine on that season of the year. And so after a few days, I go, "How old do Sasquatches get?" She goes, "Oh, 150 to 180 years old." She goes, "The white ones we think are even older." And I'm like, "How did a Sitonga get so old?" Smacked me upside the head. She goes, "What's wrong with you? Aren't you listening to the teachings I've been giving you for almost 5 days now? Sitonga, keeper of the medicine. They have forgotten more about traditional medicines and remedies in the area they live than we will ever know again." Mm-hmm. Then that's why we apprentices of being the medicine people. Mm-hmm. Sure, we learn off the older medicine person, but sometimes, especially in the old days, warfare or disease or animal attack or accident, the shaman, medicine person dies. All that knowledge is gone. Mm-hmm. So if someone steps forward and says, "I'll go learn," and they'll go into the bush, and I've heard this from many North American Indian tribes. Mm-hmm. They'll go into the bush for months, sometimes even years. And when they return, they have the knowledge of the medicinal plants and remedies and poultices and teas and other things. Where did they learn? Well, I've been trying to get close to my Dzoonakwa. It took me, I guess, maybe 12 years before that clan finally sent their teenager in to steal apples and garlic from my camp back in 2012, 2013. But for the people to go out and do like Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall, to get that interaction probably took months or over a year until finally the Sasquatch would come, trust them, and teach them. And that's where our medicine people, a lot of our tribes, still to this day, and I will never tell their names, but I've spoken to some tribes from tribe members from other tribes of mine. Oh yeah, we know when Dad's going on walkabout. All his shoes are on the porch inside. He's out barefoot. We know what he's doing.
Okay,
And that
wow.
father just put his head down. I asked him some questions. He said, "In time, I'll tell you possibly what I know." I know darn well he's interacting with Sasquatch. I have a good friend in Omaha Indian Reserve and a dear friend for life. And his he has a tragic story when he was about 12, but he would run away because social workers and police were looking for him, and his family didn't want him around because their children or parents would be taken because they were harboring her or whatever the word is, runaway. So he lived in the forest outside of Macy, Nebraska, Omaha Indian Reserve. And when I got to know him, I said, "There's no way you would live out there from March until October when it got cold every year, then come into town, be apprehended by the police and social services and go to foster care with non-Indians. And then March when it warmed up, steal money, clothes, and blankets and run back into the bush in Omaha Indian Reserve. There's no way you could do that young." I said, "Sasquatch, Sitonga looked after you." And he put his head down. He looked up. He goes, "They have laws, Tom, very strict laws, the Sitonga." And then he told me stories. And then he'd end it by, "Tom, they have laws, very strict laws." And I learned so much about Sasquatch, their society, their beliefs. And that's why I look at Sasquatch as the perfect human, the human of the night. We are the inferior bipedal creature of the world. Sasquatch, Yeti, Yowie in Australia, Elmas in Mongolia and Russia, and the list goes on. They're big, covered in hair, and they all have the ability to excrete scent from their armpit glands when they feel threatened or intimidated. So you go to a doctor and you ask him, "How come I stink under my arms when I haven't showered for a long time?" He'll just look at you and tell you, like we all know, because that's the remnant of the scent glands we had in our armpits back way down an evolutionary tree. Well, excuse me, it tells us that Sasquatch, we are its descendants. That is our Nuyum, our first ancestor. And Tolkien in my language, being black, Sasquatches still retain that, where my people are my color and a little bit darker. And but to me, Sasquatch is when you delve deep into them, especially with the native elders, and I ask the elders, "Do you have any oral history about your Sasquatches warring one another?" "Oh, no, 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 no. They would actually come and get our injured and help us when we needed it." I've heard that so many times. And and when you dig even deeper, you find out there's a pictograph from indigenous ancestors in North America that depicts them with bows and arrows and mass fighting hairy giants. Well, they probably weren't warring. What they were doing was attacking the Sasquatch. And Sasquatches have laws, very strict laws. They don't use tools in the most cases. They don't have weapons. They don't have clothing. They don't have permanent shelter. They are what we were once and what we're trying so desperately to achieve again, to be in harmony and balance with Mother Nature, what the Ikagekame, the creator, gave us. And here we are clear cutting, fracking, urban sprawling, decimating salmon runs and other fish species, and the list goes on. So who is the perfect human of the planet?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's
Watch, or
no.
whatever you call it in your tribal tongue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that they are much better than what we're doing right now. It's just such a sad state of affairs that we are not at all in harmony. I know that we're trying to get back to being in harmony. I know that there's an effort being made by a lot of people. So like, we're not that bad. We're trying our best, but no, we spent many hundreds of years getting out of harmony with nature, and I'm just hoping that we're going to try and find our way back. I have some interesting comments from some of our viewers. I have here from Penny Kuhn. She says, "Do the Sasquatch people ever show up at the Potlatch?" Can you tell us?
I've personally never experienced it, but I'm itching to go to one of the tribes I have a lot of friends with who tell me that when they go to what they call the smokehouse in the Seattle area, I won't mention the tribe, They say that's when their Sasquatches come close and they listen outside. I've heard that from other tribes as well when they're drumming and singing. The creator gave me a gift to retain knowledge, history, and then to articulate it by talking and conveying it. Nusa, to tell a story. He never gave me, as yet, the gift and ability to drum and sing. I do paint traditional drums, but I'll sing to it a little bit when I go to a potlatch or there singing sessions going on. But as far as going up to the drum, I ain't that good. I probably never will be. So, but to me, it really intrigues me. And I wish I could drum and sing because, the Sasquatch is, from what I understand, love our music, love our
Really?
dues, as we would say.
Okay.
And I've heard it from so many different tribes. And one of the things that's interesting is there's a place with outdoor theater, and they say that when the performances are going on, and that's not Native Indian music, it's rock and roll and country and things like that. The sightings seem to increase and the activity. But you got to remember, one of the big questions I ask of the elders, and what do you know about Sasquatches? They sing? Of course they do. I heard them humming one time. I was humming away and I was picking huckleberries. I heard noise in the bush on the other side of me, and I just thought it was a black bear, nothing to be afraid of. All of a sudden, I turned and looked. It's because I could hear it humming too, but a different tune. And that's when I looked around the corner, and it was a Dzoonakwa, Sasquatch, picking, humming, and eating huckleberries.
Wow, that is fascinating. That is really fascinating because we just have this. Unfortunately, media has given us this concept of, well, Dzoonakwa or Sasquatch as just sort of lumbering along and walking along, and that's it. And yet, based on what you're telling us, there's so much more to who they are and to what they how they live. And so, if they're eating and berries and humming, that sort of just really gives such a beautiful image of what they are. And that leads me to my next comment here from Thomas Hackett. He says, "What is your view on the intelligence of these creatures? Are they similar? Well, they're not similar to humans because they're not crazy and out of tune with nature. But would you say that they're much less intelligent or much more? What's your take on it?"
Said it earlier.
Yeah.
We are the inferior bipedal species of North America, aka Turtle Island to us Native Indians, aka Sasquatch Island to me. And every tribe, and I've talked to many, and hopefully I'll talk to even many more tribal members, and especially their elders. And they are, so in harmony, so understanding to the most part. And, they're what I call Sasquatch shamanism. People, when they talk about the shamanism or they look at us North American Indians as the perceivers of knowledge and balance, shamanistic levels of, oh, how can you get us one on one with nature? Well, respect it. Look at the Sasquatch and live like them. Look where the clicking of rocks by an ancestor, creating spark and then fire and then bow drilling and then pick lighters, let us firearms. And then now we got Putin and British Prime Minister, and we got Trump, Israel with fingers above nuclear buttons because we're so close to midnight on the nuclear war clock because our ancestors clicked rocks and made spark and used fire. They have laws, very strict laws. Sasquatches don't use fire. Why? Because if you look at the movie, The Gods Must Be Crazy from the 1980s, how a pilot throws a Coke bottle empty out a window of an airplane over the South African area, bushlands, and it lands on the ground and he picks it up and he brings it to his family and they're blowing on it and they're having fun with it and using it like a magnifying glass. And the next thing you know, they need it for grinding their seeds. And this person needs it for doing art. And pretty soon the young people are fighting over it. And then the girl bonks the other girl over the head with the empty Coke bottle. And the Bushman stands up, the leader of the clan, and says, the gods must be crazy to send this to us from the sky. It's created materialism. jealousy, animosity, warfare within our clan that used to be in harmony and balance. So I'm going to bring it to the edge of the world and throw it back to the gods because the gods must be crazy. That is fire. And the Sasquatches have the capability to understand that. They know not to chip rocks and make microblades and knives that eventually will become arrowheads, spearheads, knives, daggers, and eventually it'll be a weapon and it'll evolve to where we are now with guns, machine guns that are designed for one reason and one reason only, to kill our species. And that's why we got to look at Sasquatch, and we have to get conclusive proof of the existence of Sasquatch, especially as North American Indians. We need to bring it out if we have an interaction going. We need to document it so that the non-Indian in North America will understand, wow, we really been on a bad path and we got to stop what we're doing and get more like them and get in harmony and balance and become better beings like them.
That is so true. I mean, I think that nobody can look at what's happening right now and think that, yeah, we're fine, we're okay. We're not. We are so out of balance, and we're starting to see that, not only in terms of with nature, but even within ourselves, and with out of touch with one another, out of male female, based on color, race, all that sort of thing. So we're really at the edge, and the gods, they say the gods must be crazy, but it's us who are unfortunately become crazy. So it's unfortunate that we're there, but the hope is that we can realize this and move forward. I just want to sort of get back to a comment you made about the young, sorry, about the young teenager who used to go into the bush and was taught by the Dzoonakwa medicine and different and was given knowledge. How would they have communicated that knowledge? How would he have learned it? Is it just learning through observation, or is a certain kind of communication skill? How would somebody communicate directly with the Dzoonakwa?
Speak your native language to them. Okay. The Sasquatch are the humans of the night. So when you look at the tribes that suffered the Trail of Tears back in the day after contact, they're out of their traditional territories. But a majority of the North American Indian tribes are in their traditional territories, especially in Canada. So we know about our Dzoonakwa, our Gogich, our Kwakwaka'wakw, our books, and we've been with them sharing the same homeland since the dawn of our creations in most cases. And if you're medicine people, especially the ones that go forth for years to get that connection and learn from the Sasquatch, well, they ain't sitting there speaking pigeon finger language and pointing and ugh, ugh, ugh. Yo, Uixas, Dzoonakwa. Hello, how are you doing? I don't know who you are, Sasquatch. Ichman, I'm doing fine. And there's so many tribes I've interviewed that talk about this communication going back and forth. So one of the things I'm working on right now is I know that there was the Chinook trade dialect before contact that was a mishmash of all these different native Indian tribes of Turtle Island. So that when our travelers went across to see the Skookumchuck on the other side of the Great Plains and over the mountains and come back and talk about the eastern salt water across Turtle Island, they could communicate tribe to tribe because they spoke the common Chinook trade dialect. Sure, it would probably vary in different reasons, but in most cases, they could understand one another. Run into someone, Klahoya, how you doing? Right away, you're saying, I don't want to fight you. Hello, how you doing, Klahoya? So right here on the Olympic Peninsula, they call it Klahoya Park. It's a campground in the federal park. And that's when that tweaked me. I'm like, hey, if our ancestors could communicate tribe to tribe with Chinook, I better get a hold of my mom because dad passed a year and a half ago and get her to dig up his old books on the Chinook dialect so I can understand and learn it. And then when I'm out, whether it be in the Olympic Peninsula or different sections of Vancouver Island, because we have different tribes, Nuchanlith, Salish, Homolko, Lekwata, Kwakwaka'wakw, and then up north we got the Hiltsuck and the Hasla. But there was a day when we all could speak together with Chinook. And if Sasquatches do live 150 to 180 years, and some even close to 200, she taught me, and another person taught me, then hey, they might still have the ability and understanding to understand Chinook, the trade dialect. So maybe I should learn the Chinook trade dialect so I can Kahoya, and then what other words I need to use, and maybe they're going to talk back to me. We know they can talk their language. You know, I know yeah, Sounds here, the famous Ron Moorhead, good friend of mine who went to California to the Sierras and recorded all that stuff. There's a couple of recordings in there that I totally agree. There's Sasquatches, but the other ones like Samurai Chatter, no. And then the guy from Sasquatch, Ontario, that guy is so full of BS. I bet his eyes are brown because you watch his videos and the Sasquatch is like a Cro-Magnon. yeah, Brian. Oh, come on, give me a break. Sasquatches are far more intelligent than that. And if you are having an interaction and communication with them, he ain't going to call you Brian. He's going to call you Brian with an accent, of course, and probably deeper. So, like I teach people, if you want to get close to Sasquatch, and I'm no expert because I ain't close to them yet. I've been close, but not interacting with them. I want to. And so that's why I'm now going to delve into Chinook trade dialect. I've spoken Kwakwaka'wakw to them, and they just said something and moved off and left me in peace. But that's what you want. And, you know, who knows? Maybe someone's going to hear this video cast and they know Chinook trade dialect or have a book on the shelf and they're going to go out and all of a sudden Klahoya and carry on with some other words and they'll answer. Well, isn't that a great moment of hopefully getting us closer together again? Because you got to remember, look around at your environment, the urban sprawl, the pollution, the freeways, the forest deforestation, the fracking, the pipelines, the oil pumps, the gas coming out of those stacks, like I see when I go to the oil areas, and put yourself in the bare feet of a Sasquatch and ask yourself, how come they don't come to our campfire and have s'mores and hot dogs with us? Because they hate us, despise us, loathe us, because they know that we have lost our way and we're not in harmony and balance with what Ekekekame, the creator, gave us. And we're destroying the spaceship we're going through the solar system on, and they know it. But they also know, as I did with smallpox and Sasquatch and smallpox, I've interviewed the elders, and they told me about how when they had smallpox, tuberculosis, Spanish flu, influenza after contact, the Sasquatches in their territory showed up at the edge of their village, at the edge of the bush, carrying their young, dragging their sick and weak and dying. And the chief said, go in the house and get our young, weak and sick and bring them out. And the men did, to show the Sasquatches that we too are afflicted with whatever this disease is, but we have no remedy. And the Sasquatches turned and walked into the forest. And in one place, when I was living in Haida Gwaii, up north off the islands of the Haida people off northern British Columbia coast, when that elder told me that story, I just thought, wow. And he said, that's why we thought they were extinct. He goes, but you're starting to see more Gogeek now. And then if you look at me, I was born in 1965. Patty was filmed in 1967. Since 1965, 1967, all of the indigenous tribes and others of the Americas, the world, have proliferated like bunny rabbits. And, you know, my tribe numbers in the thousands now. Where in 1921, I think we were under 1,000. And the list goes on. And everyone complains about no housing on their Indian reserve. You know, that's because we're proliferating like bunny rabbits. And so too are our Sasquatches. And it's so nice to know that we're that close to getting conclusive video or camera proof of the existence of the other tribe. And when that happens, oh, poor United States, they're going to have to identify their third indigenous tribe next to the Inuit, the North American Indian, and the Sasquatch, because they're humans. And in Canada, the fourth indigenous tribe next to we First Nations, the Inuit up north, And what you people in the US, the people in the US called Cherokee, we call Métis, got their rights within a decade ago. I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. So we will have our fourth Indigenous tribe. But as the governments know in Canada and the US and Australia with the Aborigine and Brazil with the people out, the wild tribes out there, we cost billions of dollars a year. So if the conclusive proof existence, the government comes forward and says, oh yeah, Mount St. Helens blew at top, we got some dead Sasquatches there because there's stories about that. The semi-trailer that was painted red that ran into the Sasquatch, that the SUVs came up and made the Sasquatch that was dead disappear. Yeah, it really did happen. We still have them in storage. And the ones that were gassed in the desert military complex that were in the tunnels that were used for Star Wars production back in the Reagan years that the military gassed and supposedly got, it was on Art Bell. Oh yeah, we still have them, and we have their offspring that we're training to hopefully use in our militaries, because wouldn't that be the ultimate SEAL team member? A Sasquatch that could do your reconnaissance for you. They already have nocturnal vision. They're faster, stronger. They have forgotten more about blending, breaking silhouette, and using windage to your advantage in the forest than most humans will ever know. I do because I lived in bush for years. So that's how I look at Sasquatch, on a whole different level, a whole different plane than most people. And I'm bringing that Sasquatch shamanism, that understanding, and spreading it out so that people can hopefully get like me and respect their Sasquatch, understand their Sasquatch, and hopefully get to a point where we're not going down this path of destruction of our environment.
Wow. That is absolutely incredible. Like, this is just, I don't know everybody, but this has just been an incredible night tonight. And, it's just getting better. This is so much information that you don't get from the documentaries. And you're right, because I think tonight you've given us so much information and so much background. It is absolutely incredible. I'm really floored just right now. And I just want to get to some comments that people have. I have like another comment from Penny. And she says, a lot of people believe that the Sasquatch or the Dzoonakwa people can cloak or be invisible. What are your thoughts on that?
Been within 20 feet of Sasquatches 6 times. Mm-hmm. One time I popped out of a pile of leaves I raked on there when it was stealing our apples and garlic, and scared him just after dark. Hey, what are you doing? And he's, Mm-hmm. I was probably 2 meters away from him, 6 feet. And I've been around him over 30 times. Mm-hmm. And I was, me and my cousin, mostly, we would disappear sometimes for weeks on end in the bush. And we loved going up through the timber into the alpines of the mountains of coastal British Columbia and walk up in the stairway to heaven, they used to call it. But we knew they're around. Mm-hmm. You could smell them. Mm-hmm. Times we'd see them at a distance, or you'd see them peeking to the bush on you, like my tumbler here with the tree peeker. It's got its hand on the branch. Mm-hmm. And when you look at the reflection in the eyes, it's actually my wife walking with a walking stick, a backpack, and her ponytail. That Sasquatch is looking. And we know they're doing that because sometimes they pull a branch down and they let it go and they turn and they walk away, and you turn around and you see that branch bouncing. No squirrel, no bear cub, no cougar cub, no bird. What it was a Sasquatch letting you know, I saw you, I know you're here. I'm going about my business to do what I wanted to do. I expect the same from you. Respect. So out there, knowing that about Sasquatch, that they're always out there and they're around you. Nighttime, you'd wake up, see that the moon had moved quite a bit, and you could smell that wet your nose hairs, so you can smell better, and you can smell that tang of rotten body odor, and you know it's a Dzoonakwa, just downwind from you. That's where you can only smell it a little bit, and it just leave you. I've been around them a lot of times. I lived in bush for years. I've never seen them cloak. They've never mind spoke me. I never seen them turn into an orb. I did see orbs, but it was at an abandoned native village where the people died of smallpox in mass. I've never seen them fly a UFO. And whenever I see tree structures, A-frames, or lean-tos against a rock wall or big tree, I don't go near it. Because when I was a grizzly bear hunting guide, my common law wife at the time and girlfriends before her, if they were on their cycle during the month, they'd warn me, you might want to stay downstairs tonight in the spare room for the next week. Because it was taboo for me as a hunter, especially chasing grizzly bears, to be around that woman's blood. Every indigenous tribe that you research seemed to have that same understanding and protocol with the male female. And so we know of birthing huts. We know of birthing trees where the roots are. We know of menstrual structures and huts so that the men didn't go near that blood because it would ruin their hunting. It was bad mojo. So when you're in the bush and you're a Sasquatch and you're just dum-de-dum-de-dum, I'm hunting, I'm harvesting, I'm being a scout, and all that teepee structure. Windage. I got to make sure I'm upwind. I go around the teepee structure, the log lean-to. Because when we look at the Sasquatch structures, teepee, wigwam, which is like an earth hut, or lean-to, in most cases, they don't retain heat. They don't keep out the rain. They don't keep out the snow, and the wind blows right through the gaps. They're menstrual and birthing huts. And that's why a male should never, ever do like you see these non-Indian guys do. They go into a teepee structure and they're crawling around on inside. And I'm just like, oh, gee, shame on you. You shouldn't do that. You better not go hunting. You might as well sell your guns. You never get an animal again. And that's why I teach people, if you want to understand your local Sasquatch in the area where you're going to learn, the first thing you must do as a human is show respect to another fellow human. Mm-hmm. You reach out to your local Indian tribe and you get your protocol and permissions for you to investigate if they allow you within their traditional territories. Mm-hmm. And then in turn, the doors open of friendship and cooperation. And maybe they'll teach you how to say, yo, Dzoonakwa. Hello, how are you doing, Sasquatch? I don't know who you are, in their dialect. Mm-hmm. And you never know, you might go say that at night when you hear or smell something, and it might answer you in that tribal dialect from that region. So cloaking, mind speaking, all that, I totally respect the native Indian tribes in North America that I believe it, and it's happened totally. I would never try to change your mind or anything, but from my experiences, maybe if they do that, maybe the Sasquatch is talking and going, maybe we better just keep it critterist with that guy because he smells funny. And why is he living out here? And no one does it. They all moved away in the 60s, but he moved back. He smells funny. We better just keep it simplistic and understand him before we show him our magic. That's the way I could look at it in an aspect of, does it happen? I don't know. I've never experienced it.
Okay, but it seems to happen with other. I mean, I think what I'm understanding from all this, I mean, of course, we can agree to disagree, but I think that what I'm getting from all this is that different tribal, different tribes have different experiences with their Dzoonakwa. So maybe not with your tribe,
Absolutely.
But maybe with another. So that's good. So I'm just going to get into another one here. I have another question from Addy. This is an interesting question. He says, can Sasquatch watch? Well, I think you already explained that, with the portals, you haven't seen it, but maybe they can with other tribes, depending. But he says, can Sasquatch walk through portals, or are they capable of transdimensional travel? Do you have any comments on that, or no?
Never happened with me. And what did happen with me is one time I went in just before dark to a bay that it was low tide, really big low tide, and it was starting to rise. And I knew it was a perfect time to find Charlie, cockles, the shellfish, which is also the favorite food of the Sasquatch. So I went there and I lifted my motor on my 18.5-foot Gregor aluminum boat, and I tied the painter line on the bow to my waist, and with hip waders on, I'm walking in the water as it's starting to come up. And the eelgrass is starting to lift, and I could see the bumps and humps of the Charlie, the cockles. And I'm picking them one by one, putting them on the bow deck of my speedboat. I looked up, and roughly 4 hours later, I come to, and I'm in my speedboat, muscle shirt, shorts on, still in my hip boots, cockles all over my deck because I traveled about 2 miles, and I'm tied to a kelp patch because I could smell and see the bull kelp beside my boat when I put the flashlight on. It's foggy and I'm shaking cold, and I'm like, how the heck did I get here? So I figured out where I was, and then I used compass and got back to I was living in a float house at that time, got back there. And to this day, I keep thinking, what happened in those 4 hours? All I can remember is when I was harvesting cockles, I saw the longest legged black bear of my life. So what happened was something happened between me and the Sasquatch. Someone said, "Oh, go get hypnotized, Tom." I'm like, "Are you kidding? You know how many skeletons I got in my closet? I've been a native Indian all my life. I was a commercial fisherman, ran with some pretty rugged people. No, I'm never getting hypnotized. That's not happening because I can't plead the fifth in Canada." So anyway, I'm thinking, what happened? And then when I started to study different things and ask questions of people when I was having some counseling, because they were pretty smart, they explained to me that when someone has a very traumatic thing, like an airplane crash, car crash, abused in all different manners and ways, don't need to say which way, the mental band-aid goes in. The nature's way, God's way of making you deal with that trauma. You don't hear them talking every day and every time you see them about that traumatic event that happened. Some have to deal it with counseling and so forth, but something happened with me with that Sasquatch. The mental band-aid kicked in. That's why I'm missing that 4+ hours between dark and into the dark. So to me, when I hear some of the non-Indians talking about it cloaked, it turned into an orb, it was mind speaking with me. I could hear the zzz, and my brain was vibrating. Oh, I seen it. That UFO landed, it come out, and then it ran up that ladder, got in the UFO and took off. I think in most cases, that's the mental band-aid, because when you get close to a grizzly bear, it's very scary. When you go and hunt your first grizzly bear, and I did it when I was 16 by myself, your legs are shaking, your throat's dry, you can hear your heart pounding in your ears. You think the bear can hear your heart, and your gun, you're trying to hold steady so you can get a good clean shot and drop it, which I did in 2 shots. But it is scary. And when you become a hunting guide and you're responsible for the life of your client or clients, and you have to ensure that that bear is put down humanely as quick as possible and not to suffer, then you're got a lot of weight on your shoulders. And all of a sudden the shot's not right. And the next thing you know, you got a full out charge coming where you just drop to your knee and boom, 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 jump to your side and put the fourth one through the heart, lung, heart, and blow the outside shoulder, as I've done 3 times to protect my client. And I turn around and I see my client just running it. I tail it away. They're supposed to back me up with their gun. They had 3 more bullets, but no, they ran away. And then they go into their stateroom and they hide on the yacht we worked on, or they hide in their hotel room. And are you sure there's no grizzly bears on this island, Tom? I'm sure there's no grizzly bears on this island. We'll go hunt your black bear tag. The mental band-aid. When something happens and you see a Sasquatch, it is going to be like I remember my first few times, just like when I got my first bears. Dry throat, heart pounding where you hear it in your ears, legs actually shaking, and you are scared. And that's what I think happens with a lot of the supposed cloaking, portal jumping, UFO flying, turning to an orb, mind speaking Sasquatches. They got so scared out of their boots that the band-aid kicked in and they came up with an explanation for seeing that biggie like that close to me.
Well, I know that I've heard some people talk about, and it makes a lot of sense what you're saying in terms of getting scared. I'm wondering if maybe also because some people have talked about having very peaceful encounters with Dzoonakwa, excuse me, and so I guess it depends on what it is because some people have had some very peaceful encounters where they haven't been scared and they've had a very very beautiful and loving interaction. And I guess some people have been scared, but we'll see how it goes. And I guess some people have had different experiences. But I want to get to a couple more comments and questions here because it's where the lines are up light tonight. So I have here Carol Williams, and she wants to know what are your thoughts on how the Sasquatch or Dzoonakwa, how they communicate with each other? So they have their own language? I think you probably went over this before, but if you just want to quickly just sort of go over that again.
language. Just the way she asked me a question and I'm answering it, they have language. They understand each other. When the lips are flapping and the tongue's moving and you can see some teeth and no teeth, they're communicating language. And yes, because we know us indigenous tribes had a lot of body language. You know, we still use it when we're hunting in coastal British Columbia and elsewhere. But we know the non-Indian perceiving us Indians back in the day, it was all finger talk. I've seen, and we snuck up on a Sasquatch one time. We were actually going hunting, walking into a big 35 knot plus wind, got up elevated up where there's a junction of animal trails. And as we come over the crest, there was a Sasquatch just lower than us, facing the wind, trees rustling and making noise with its hand on a fallen log with a rock, waiting for an animal to come up and down that animal trail so you get it. We made a noise, it turned, looked at us, bing, 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 it was gone. So, well, we said it when it saw us, it was like a dog, how the hair stood up. It almost looked like it went into like a lion's mane, the hair on its shoulders and under its arms. Like the hair on the Sasquatch is long on the shoulders and arm area. And, you know, to me, and then you hear other people talk about how it was almost like it was flexing the hair on its body was moving different things. That's language. When dogs and other animals use their hackles and ears flap and the ridged spine hair goes up, that's language. When we get so scared, you say your hair stood up and you actually can feel it. I remember a dog lunged at me when I went up a porch. It come over the gate and just about bit my face. And I knew the dog, but he scared the willies out of me where when I was running down the stairs, I could feel my hair on my neck coming down. That's how scared I got. So that's telling us, like our armpits, that we once were able to convey with communication by moving our muscles and our hair. And Sasquatch, I believe, still has that ability. So how does the Sasquatch communicate? Hey, how you doing? Hey, look, humans, let's run. Humans just heard us. Now we're seen. But if you think of them hitting trees, crack, tree breaking, pushing trees down, shaking trees, throwing sticks, throwing rocks, throwing pine cones. And then the stories when you do interviews about the flexing of hair on its body and convulsing. I don't want to use the term, but hey, maybe that's why they get the word cloaking, because that Sasquatch is doing something with its hair, or it can blend and get into the shadows and look like the greenery around it. It's not cloaking. It's just using muscles to move its hair to help it break silhouette and blend in with the trees around it. And that's what I think cloaking is.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, that's definitely makes sense because, like, I mean, you know, you have different animals that you know, you're right. They can sort of move their hair around, or they can change the color of their skin, and they can.
I never spoke about that with Sasquatch before. This is the first.
Yeah, it's great. It's good, but it's a very, very good, you know, point to make that maybe its hairs are such that if it's moving around, it could, you know, cloak itself. Getting to another interesting comment I have here a comment from Pyramid on Mars. And he says here, Elder Camu Sasquatch is over 10,000 years old. Have you heard of the Elder Camu Sasquatch? No?
No. Okay. I don't listen to podcasts, read books on Sasquatch no more. You know, I wrote my own book that I sell here in the store, and I'm producing another one. I do podcasts because I'm educating people, but you know, people always ask me, did you hear about this subject? Did you hear about this books or Grassman or Momo or Rougarou? And I'm just like, no, because I don't think it's my role to be a listener. I listen to the elders and I listen to the people I've had encounters and other investigators, but you know, it's people always ask me about, do you know about them? I'm like, no, I don't.
Okay.
And you know, is it 10,000 years? I don't know. I've never seen it. You know, I imagine he's pretty white and pretty skinny, because that's what I think a lot of the stories about, I can't remember the name of it now. Oh, Witago. A lot of people that aren't native call it Wendigo. Mom taught me Cree, Witago. That's how you say it. And then when I researched that, I think in some instances, Witago is an old elder Sasquatch that worms and cancer and losing all its fat. It's cold, so it comes across a deer carcass and it rips the stinky hide off and uses it because it's all old and skinny and shaken and cataract eyes. It can't hunt like it used to. And because it was a rogue, a toppled, displaced, beat up husband, father, clan leader, because Bush code is every clan leader of a pack will eventually be toppled by a younger, stronger one. And those Sasquatches that get toppled, most of them just go and they're soloists. Or they go find a new mate and they start another family. We're still doing that. I did that. So some of them, though, like us humans, when the woman, get out of here. Next time you come here, there'll be a court order. You better lawyer up, and I'm keeping the kids. And the next thing you know, he goes to the bank, finds out his bank card ain't working. His credit card is maxed out. And she stripped him of all of his wealth and monetary stability. And now he has to go to lawyers and he can't see his gingadon, his children, like I was. And something in me snapped when I got thrown out of my house and I couldn't be around my children no more. I was going to do some bad things. But when I got to Vancouver Island again, and I saw a sign on a hotel that said, success is not defined on how high you reach, it's how high you bounce when you've hit rock bottom. Well, that saved two humans because I chose to bounce instead of getting my revenge. Because when you're an Indian and your common law wife at the time is a social worker with a degree, but not native, there's two things we natives in North America fear. Social workers take our children, police take our parents. And she was a social worker and still is. And I knew I'd never have my children that were 4 and 6 under my roof ever again. So
So,
Sasquatches snap and they go
yeah.
rogue, and those are the cannibal hunter killer Sasquatches.
Okay, so that's really it's unfortunate to hear about your story there, but we'll move on. So I do have some people though that that feel that the Sasquatch people are telepathic, and I've heard of that myself. And the reason why I feel that is because I think that, and everybody can agree to disagree, but I think that, and I'm not talking about Dzoonakwa, I'm talking about humans, and especially early humans. I think that we as humans have lost a lot of the abilities that we used to have, that we used to take for granted. And some of those abilities of being able to communicate with one another at a telepathic level, we used to have that way back when. And we have, and that's a part of getting out of balance with nature, because I think that when you're in balance with nature, you're going to have, and it doesn't have to be the word telepathic in the true sense of the word, but it's just a sense of being in
I don't
contact.
even want to open that door.
Yeah.
I don't even discuss it.
Yeah,
It's like
but fair
coming to
enough.
me with all of that is like going
Yeah.
to an atheist and trying to convert him to Christianity. I'm a
No.
devout critterist.
Okay.
And that's it.
Fair enough,
There's
but
a
I'm just saying, I'm just
line
giving.
I will not cross or discuss. on.
Okay, no problem. So then we'll agree to disagree on that one. But so if you so I have another one here. So would you say that actually a question that I did want to ask was that similar to early humans, we used to do cave art and drawings and to explore our world and to sort of draw it on walls. Do the Dzoonakwa have an artwork? Do they have any kind of artwork or artistic ability? Especially if
Central
they're
coast British Columbia and one other place in coastal British Columbia, surveyors. I can't say what tribe, what territory, but they found a cave with rotten wood that was broken to look like masks that we dance in our potlatches. Rudimentary, but they came across it in two different areas from two different tribal areas. In Omaha, Lucas went into a winter like cave. They dug into the Missouri River bank of sand, hard packed sand. And when he went in there, he found on like a ledge a corn cob husk doll. I got pictures of it. And then he went home, and 4th of July, his daughter, who was, probably 5 years old, went missing. And when they finally did find her, police came and everything. It was like an hour and a bit when they finally found his daughter. And this is dark on the reserve and bush behind his house. She said that Sitonga was holding her. And I could hear you calling for me and everyone calling for me, Dad, but big hairy man had me. What he was doing was sending Lucas a message. How dare you disrespect me and our people and go into that cave and take our children's corn husk cob doll. He returned it, and everything's been at peace since. So those are the only accounts that I know of art, and that's all I can say on that.
So that's okay. That's very interesting because I don't know. I guess I would have liked the idea of them having art or any kind of paintings that we could maybe explore. And but moving forward, though, did you say? I think you talked about how one was humming, and you said that they like our music. Do they play music? I'm not sure if we went over that. Do they play music like with any kind of like sticks or drums or anything that they do?
Well, my wife and I, Peggy, we got a report and we followed up last Sunday. This guy lives just out of Forks here, up in about half a dozen micro farm ranches up there, and they're about 4 miles up from the highway in the bush along the Bogushell River. A lot of salmon and steelhead, and throughout the year, and elk, and of course the human-produced foods that Sasquatch do come get: poultry feed in the outbuildings, livestock feed, leftover stuff in the garden and the fruit trees, compost boxes, greenhouses, pet food left out. So anyway, this guy up there has seen a mother with a baby on its back. He's seen a big one run down the street 4:30 in the afternoon when he first moved there. He's heard them numerous times. They pushed a tree down one night when he says, I'm retired. I stay up till about 2, 3 in the morning. I always go on the porch, stretch and get my evening air before I go to bed. And I've heard this noise and that noise and smelled them and seen red eyes reflecting across the street. And he came in here to the store week and a half ago and said, yeah, a few days back, I went outside about 2:30 at night and I could hear, and then more drumming and more drumming. And it sounded like 2 or 3 or more of them drumming on a tree, a log. And I go, you go look? No, I don't go in there. You know me, Tom. I don't go look in there. I said, well, I'm going to go look on the weekend. He goes, yeah, you go ahead and stop by the house, but don't do it before noon because I sleep in. Peggy and I went up there, found tracks, trail systems, and a log where it looked like the bark was peeled off because it was pounded off. It would have been the dead alder that fell. The dryish bark would have been busted in small pieces, but there are big chunks that it looked like someone peeled the bark off of that fallen alder tree, which is hardwood, and with a beater stick was drumming. But you could see that 3 different areas of that fallen tree were like that. So good evidence that he did have an encounter of drumming Sasquatch. That's probably one of the only ones I've ever really heard of about that.
Mm. That's really interesting. And I wanted to know if you, I mean, you may or may not know this information, but we know that the Dzoonakwa, Sasquatch, and different names that it has are seen in other parts of the world. I did not know, and again, like I said, I'm not as well versed in this topic, but I did not know they had them in Australia. I have to admit. Can you tell us a little bit more about the ones in Australia?
I just call him Yowie. There was a good picture that came out. Guy had a good camera, got some good pictures. What I saw was 3 or 4 pictures, but you could see it had a splayed toe, like an orangutan. And everything that, other than that, is indicative of our Sasquatch. And so that really intrigued me. But when you study feet toe structure, you'll find that the people that live without shoes from childhood to adult, they have splayed toes. When you look at a lot of Sasquatch tracks, you look for the splayism. Some of them don't have it, mind you, but a lot of the ones that aren't splayed to a certain extent, I think they're BS, they're bunk, they're someone's fabrication of a track. But when you talk to the foot guys like Dr. Grover Krentz back in the 80s and early 90s, and Dr. Jeff Meldrum now from Pocatello University in Idaho, they read their books and listen to them on stage talking. They talk of displayed toeism. So that Yowie one really intrigued me. But to me, humans too, we're so accustomed to tight toes because of like foot binding with the Japanese. Our feet are always been in shoes since childhood. But to the ones that are still living in harmony and environment without shoes, they'll get displayism of their toes. So that's one of the things I look at, in Sasquatches, both North America and also Yowie, that one picture anyway, and some of the track prints and casts.
And so, just moving forward with what you were doing, you were saying that you do a lot of artwork. And can you tell us a
Yep.
little bit more about the artwork of the Dzoonakwa in relation to your culture, in terms of what your people are working on? Exactly.
So
And
that's the Kwakwaka'wakw design of frame 352 from the Roger Patterson 22 millimeter with Bob Gimlin film. They call it the famous 352 frame, and that's my native rendition of that. That was one of the first Sasquatch designs I did, Dzoonakwa designs. This is a male Dzoonakwa walking up a river with a salmon in its hand. This one is same one there on a cup, and I have other ones up on the wall, like the tree peaker I showed you earlier, and the one that really turned it up, Sasquatch Lives Matter. I was mad at the Black Lives Matter group push because they, in their protests in Seattle 5 years ago, they shut down my favorite restaurant. And I went to town, it was all behind barricades. I went home and I drew Sasquatch Lives Matter. And so I do art, I have fun with my art, but also like to convey what took place in my experiences with Sasquatch, like the tree peaker, they're peeking at you. There's the Salish tribes of southern Vancouver Island. They call it the Watcher. And even in my house here in Forks, Washington, my sister gave me a Salish screen print, and it's doing that, looking and watching, and there's a reflection of the longhouse and its pupils. That's where I got the idea for my piece. So it's the art I do. I have a lot of Douglas fir bowls. They're beautiful. You can go to my Facebook group, Sasquatch Island. Scroll through it. You'll see some of my art with Sasquatch designs on drums, the wood bowls that I have that were lathe turned. I like to paint on plywood because it's so durable and strong. And I have one here that's a black Sasquatch walking through the forest. And I'm going to be working on a piece here. It says "Fear the Rogue," and it's going to be like that. Oh, mad coming at you from your T-shirt or coffee cup. And right now, with Discovery Channel Expedition Bigfoot series, season 6 is airing right now. I'm on first and second episode and the fifth episode so far. I don't know what else they're going to use me for because I filmed with them last July in Washington State. And I'm always getting, asked about my art. And the best thing is this, send me an email, which you can go to sasquatchisland.com, click the email me a picture of your Facebook Messenger profile picture and your name, and friend request me so I can look down. I get 30, 40, 50 requests every week. I can't keep up to them. So if you email me your picture and everything, then I'll go accept your friend request. And then you can go look at my Facebook albums page and the pictures, photos, and I got a bunch of art there. My YouTube personal, Tom Sewid, a lot of my bowls I put on a pedestal and film it and speak about the bowl. I got some pretty intricate ones, but my big enjoyment is Dzoonakwa, Sasquatch. And I got a gentleman that I'm communicating with right now in email. He wants a tattoo. It'd be like the third or fourth tattoo design I've done for people of a Dzoonakwa, Sasquatch. So it's humbling. It's really nice knowing people want my designs. Even one guy's came to our conference here in Forks last year, and I got a picture of it. He had this design on his chest. Well, the first thing I did is, you don't do that. You don't steal my art. Those are my family's crests, and my chief. He could be pretty mad, and I'm mad right now. He's taking my crest I got. You wanted to use a Native Indian design? There's a Facebook group called Fraudulent Native Art. There's a reason why there's a push now in Canada and the US to say, leave it alone if you don't have rights and title to our native art. It's our art to do. I just about skinned alive verbally or on text a woman that stole my designs and she's all over Etsy selling my designs. I said, "Oh no, they're mine." I said, "You could tell you copied the thing on a light table or a copying machine and started putting it on your drums. You're not even Indian. What are you doing selling deer hide drums for? You wanna be? Won't you be stealing my art?"
Yeah, that's awful. I feel bad because it's I think we're especially at a time right now. I think there was I can't remember the artist, but she was doing a music video, and she was in full regalia and like feathers and all that kind of stuff, and people were really angry because they're like, look, you're sort of what's the word, they're appropriating different people's
Isn't that
cultures.
Buffy
So
St. Marie?
oh my God! Yeah, that was a disaster. What was that about? That was awful. 'Cause I remember being a kid and growing up with Buffy St. Marie, and I remember like the NFB used to have these sort of little vignettes on the CBC, and you had Buffy singing and all that kind of stuff. I just thought, what the hell was that? So that's like a big fat horrible show. But you know what? If people do that, that's really they're at their detriment. So we'll leave it at that. But just moving on, I have a little comment here. And I felt that this was interesting because it's not the first time I've heard it. But I have Penny saying here, the Sasquatch people, once they have a relationship with trusting humans, they will gift and the humans will gift back. And it's a way of nature and giving. Would you say that you know of people that have had? I mean, I know you talked about the young gentleman, a young teenager who learned medicine and all that, but do you also have other people that have had, how should I say, friendships with Dzoonakwa?
Absolutely. When I was native watchman and by my chief and council appointed in 1990 to go into our abandoned native village with fallen carved poles and big house cedar beams standing and vertical and old houses with their windows knocked out from our families and no doors. I had to go there and be a watchman so no one would dig the Midden complex up for native artifacts and also to see what had happened with our village in 20 years of it being abandoned. But when I was there, I didn't have TV. So at low tide, I used to go walk the beach. And, people wouldn't come in their kayaks until the water was high or it was late morning to mid afternoon. And so I'd get up early at daylight, be low tide. So I'd be walking on the beach and I'd be picking, looking for Indian trade beads, glass trade beads, copper bracelets, rock and copper artifacts from when our people lived there. But I would pick up because I had my dogs with me, every year. And I always have real dogs, like, res dogs, lab crosses, serious dogs, not those little imitation yip yappers, bush dogs that are going to help you protect you. So anyway, I'd be picking away and I didn't want my dog's feet to get cut. So all the glass and rusty metal that I would find, I would gather it up in a bucket and I would bring it up to, some of the things that were kind of neat, like the rusty old bolts or things like that. I'd put on this flat rock in our village known as Kwakwaka'wakw rock. That's a whole different legends and story. But anyway, I'd put them there. And some of the glass or later on when it was high tide, so I can bring my speedboat there and gather up all the glass that I picked in my pockets and discard it, get it away from the village. Well, all of a sudden, I'm there one time and by myself, year or two down the road. All of a sudden, I go up to Kwakwaka'wakw rock and I'm like, I never picked any rusty metal up yesterday. There's no humans in this village yesterday or this morning. This is like a couple hours after daylight. And I'd see glass, rusty metal, and copper pieces. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then one time I realized I saw the big impressions in the clamshells because the beach is white with clamshells from thousands of years of habitation there, my tribe. And that's when I thought, oh, Dzoonakwas, they're seeing me out on the beach picking all this garbage up and putting it on the rock. And they must be doing the same when they come at night when it's low tide to dig their cockles and clams. They're gathering up the garbage as well and knowing that I'm going to come and probably take it away. So, gifting, that's them gifting to me. I've gifted them food all the time. And I tell people, fine, gift them food, but make it natural food. Don't be giving them peanut butter or chocolate. We know that our dogs can die of chocolate. We know people have nut allergies. Why would you bring peanut butter to a Sasquatch that's never eaten peanuts on Vancouver Island or peanut butter? You know, use your frontal lobes. They're supposed to be developed when you're a bipedal hairless human. Don't be so stupid. Don't be bringing them nuts and manufactured corporate type food filled with MSG and who knows what else. Because I know a Canadian Sasquatch has never tasted palm oil. You know, why would you give them something with palm oil in it? They might have an allergic reaction and die. You know, look at us North American and indigenous people when contact took place. We weren't accustomed to the simple things like the flu and tuberculosis, and the list goes on. And, you know, so be smart, be wise, you know, give them, you know, whole wheat dough when you make them bannock. And that's one of the things I tell the Indians. You shouldn't be using that white bleached corporate dough or flour for bannock for the Sasquatch. You might be using, you know, ancient grains and whole wheat. You can buy it right next to the white flour. You know, I think that's a better thing to gift your local Sasquatch. You know, and these guys putting, like, one guy was on Facebook the last 2 days bragging away about, here's some of the things we gathered up after at our gifting station. There's a peanut butter jars torn apart by the Sasquatch. Can you imagine if a small piece of plastic gets lodged in a juvenile Sasquatch's throat? Well, you just asphyxiated and killed a Sasquatch because of your stupidity. So use your brains. You know, let's give them natural stuff.
Yeah, that makes so much sense because the idea of a young child, Dzoonakwa, being choking on a stupid piece of plastic is absolutely a nightmare. I can't believe that, and that would be a total disaster. And it's true, you don't know what they can or can't eat, and so it makes no sense to give them peanuts because you're right, they've never eaten peanuts. You don't know, and you don't know if they have like you said, palm oil, that disaster. So I mean, all that kind of stuff. You're right, people need to be smart, and if we're talking about wanting to get back into balance with nature, you have to sort of give them, I know, fruits and vegetables, that sort of thing. I think that would make a lot more sense. So if there's certain things you wouldn't feed your dog, like for example, like chocolate and all that, don't bring it to the forest. And also don't bring it because if you bring these types of artificial things, it's going to leave litter in the forest. So that's even more stupid. So, people pay attention. So I have a call here from Ross. And just want to remind everybody, our viewers watching tonight, to please like and subscribe. It really helps our channel. And also to, give a big like and to subscribe to our channel. That really helps. And also visit SasquatchAlegend.com, the store where Tom works. So that's a good thing to do. So go to the call that we have now. And like I said, if you want to call into the show, let me know. And you can always send me an email. And you give me your number and we can call you on the show. So I have a call that I have here that I received from Ross. Ross, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. So did you want to ask a question, Ross, to Tom for this evening?
Yes, sure. Yes, very much so. Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Thank you very much for awesome presentation. I have enjoyed it very much. So I live here in Colorado. Do you know by any chance Jim Myers from a Sasquatch outpost?
No.
No, you have never heard of him? Yeah. So okay. Yeah, we have a Sasquatch outpost it's kind of a community.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Now it rings a bell. Yeah, he's got some store or something, little museum there.
Yeah. It's in Bailey, Colorado, and it's a real. I mean, it's a real community, a little town. There's been many sightings of Sasquatch where people go do a gifting. It is I mean, it's amazing what kind of experiences that people have here.
Ross?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So it's a strange, I'm getting kind of a feedback. So anyway, there's been some, Jim, you have, so Tom, you have talked about it, interactions with Sasquatch. People I know of, they have been taken into their worlds, humans, beings. Like they come to our world, humans went to their world. Do you know of anything, encounters like that?
Last 15 years, everyone owns one of these. We don't wake up, we turn it on, we go to bed, we shut it off. Show me the pictures and videos and audio recordings. That's what I got to say about it. I hear everything from they bring us into their dimension and we go in and they come into our dimensions. Show me the proof in the pudding. Oh, they come to my door and they scratch on the screen and give me garlic. They've been doing this for decades. Show me the proof. It's, okay. As an investigator, Dr. John Bindernagel, when he was alive, Dr. John Bindernagel taught me something. When in doubt, throw it out. We don't have time to deal with all the bunk and BS. And so that's what I say nowadays. A lot of people go, oh, you're so harsh. What part of me being an Indian for almost 60 years, growing up in Indian reserves, always being there in the summer when I was commercial fishing, having to fight my way through things, going to private school where I was a filthy, rotten Indian and I had to fight with all these spoiled, rotten little rich kids in this boarding school between grade 8 and 9. Commercial fisherman all my life, running with the rough and rugged, working in logging camps, being a bushman, running bush camps, being kicked by men who ran bush camps, because that's the world I come from. Now I wrestle Sasquatches for a living after spending over 2 decades going after grizzly bears. So yeah, when I say, show me the proof, it's easy to flap your lips and say, I saw it come out of a porthole and it came into our world and it brought me into their world and, oh, the things I saw. Yeah, well, my leg's starting to hurt unless you show me something out of this little piece of white man's magic. That's how I look at it. That's how bushman, commercial fisherman, grizzly bear, ex-hunting guide looks at it. I say what I mean what I say. If it don't have the proof, bunk and BS.
Mm-hmm. Can I weigh in on this one though? Can I weigh in on this?
Go ahead, Christoph.
Yeah, I just wanted to know because, and I'm not trying to disrespect or discredit what you told me, for example, about how the young teenager learned medicine from the Dzoonakwa.
Oh, he didn't learn from medicine from them. It was the medicine woman who was the same age as me that learned when she was young from Sitonga.
Okay.
The young boy was looked after and watched over by the clan of Sitonga in the bush outside of Macy, Nebraska.
Okay. So would we need to ask for proof of that, or is that something that we should trust because of the elders?
We'll meet him. He lives in Macy, Nebraska. His name is Lucas White. I got his phone number. I have his email. I book expeditions for people that want to go see Sasquatch. And he had a gentleman down there that came investigating with me from Ontario. And then I put him on to Lucas. So he went down there last summer and actually had an encounter with a Sitonga. So you want proof in the pudding? Be smarter. Charter an Indian guide to go find your Sasquatch. There's a lot of us that are doing expeditions now. You're looking at the screen, one of the first humans to ever do a commercial boat-based whale watch in 1980 with a Zodiac when I was 15. That same summer, I would do one of the first ever grizzly bear boat tours. The following year, I participated in the first ever sea kayak fiberglass paddle with the orcas in North America, if not the world. And now I'm doing Sasquatch expeditions. Lewis and Clark would still be bumbling and stumbling around Turtle Island if they didn't hire Carbonu with Sacagawea, his native wife, and other native Indians to bring them to the Skookumchuck in the west and meet the people in the mouth of the Columbia River. So you want proof of a Sasquatch. They created these Indian reservations to put us between the four corner posts, so we were only seen and heard from when the non-Indian wanted to see and hear us. Well, they're enclaves to this day of great Sasquatch habitat. And most non-Indians don't go in there because in most cases they're not allowed because it's private property. It's a tribe's Indian reserve. But the tribes inside know the Sasquatches. They're up there. They have areas in some of these in the Pacific Northwest where they don't allow their people to go harvesting wood or hunting because they know that's where they're sharing the lands and protecting the Sasquatches so no hunters are around them or any humans. So, when I always hear about people bringing all these different aspects of Sasquatch, and I'm like, go talk to your local Indian tribe. That's what my job is, to educate you so that, oh, gee, I didn't think of that. Maybe I should go and send an email and to the tribe office and get invited in to come talk to them and protocol and permission. And the next thing you know, 5 years down the road, you're tight, lifelong friends with tribe members, and they've taught you so much. And you're able to do like me and go, you want to see a picture of Sasquatch? I got a few on here from when I was investigating and videos. Proof in the pudding.
Okay, so Ross, did you have any other questions, or could I move on to my next call?
Yeah, I have one last question, Tom. Thank you for the awesome answer. So there's been several instances where people, white people like you and I, got healed by a Sasquatch. Do you know of any? Can you comment on this or what's it about?
I've only 1 year. The hunting guides or the clients blew my right ear out. The question was, you've heard of non-Indians being killed by Sasquatch?
No, being healed by Sasquatch.
Healed, physically healed.
That's what I educated you on. Sitonga, keeper of the medicine. Sasquatches have forgotten more about medicinal remedies in the homelands and the territories they live in than we will ever know again. So, yeah, I got numerous stories about a hunter who had a broken leg. Sasquatch saved him. Another one had gangrene. Sasquatch came and fixed them up back in the day when he was trapping. So, yeah, that's what they are. They are the ones. They live in harmony and balance in what we used to do. They can get to be 150 years plus. They have forgotten more about traditional plant medicine than we will ever know again. So yeah, if someone's sick, I'm sure a Sasquatch, if he feels trusting of that human or that hairless human, is going to come and use their medicine. So yeah, it happens, I imagine. It hasn't happened to me. All they did was throw a rock at me.
So Ross, did you have any other questions?
Yeah. No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Answers. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so if anybody does have another question, I do have another call coming in. And so I would like to take that call. And if you have a call and you want to speak with Tom, please feel free to call us and we can speak with you. And so I just wanted to see if I have a call here. Is this Penny?
Yeah, it is.
Hi, Penny. How are you doing?
Hey, good stuff. How are you doing? Doing good.
I'm doing good. So did you have a question for Tom this evening?
Yeah, I sure do. One.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so if you could just ask him about Sunbow. He's from British Columbia. Does he know of him?
I didn't hear that. Who?
Sunbow?
No.
No?
Name like that runs in a different circle than the one I'm in.
Yeah. Sorry, Penny, can you tell us where Sunbow is from?
Yeah, British Columbia.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
No, I don't know them.
No. And what do they do, Penny? The Sunbow, do you know what they do exactly?
Yeah, Sunbow has relationship with the Sasquatch people. He's connected with them. So I thought that Tom would probably know him.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sunbow went on the internet and showed his proof, pictures and videos. Because I'm sure Sunbow owns a cell phone too. Like I say, I got to be a hard line like that because we get so wrapped up with the bunk and BS. You know, everyone's got like, some of these people. You got to remember, there's when we're in high school, those ones that were singled out and weren't sitting with the cliques and the groups, and we know what it was like. All of a sudden now I see ones like that, like the guy out of Alberta, Nordag area. We all know him with his Muppet looking fake Sasquatches. I'm not going to say his name, but they're seeking attention. And that's where, as a critterist, I draw the line because I find a lot of people like there's this guy who's got some moonbeam name or something, and he's interacting with Sasquatches and goes in different dimensions with them and flies in spaceships with them. And I look at him, and then I looked at pictures on his Facebook profile, and I did some research at the high school he went to, and you could tell he was the loner. No friends, no family, no prom date, probably got beat up and had his money taken for lunch. So now he's trying to seek attention and coming up with all these grandiose things. It's like those guys that are having tents set up and they're taking money from people that they can cure them with tongues and all this hocus pocus from. I'm a Christian, but I don't believe in that bunk, you know, and that's what I find with the Sasquatchology, as I call it, the industry of Sasquatch. I've had a lot of experiences with Sasquatch. None of it has been into what I call the woo-woo side. And I'm a critterist. But then when people like you're doing right now is, do you know this person? And with from his name, I can tell right now he's interacting with Sasquatches. Nah, I highly doubt it because on his cell phone, he hasn't brought forth any evidence. And that's what it's all about. And people like me, you got to remember, I'm a Hamatsa. I belong to one of the most powerful society of the Kwakwaka'wakw people. And I've been initiated twice over more in Potlatch. We had a role in our society and we still do. We mean what we say and we say what we mean. And that's what I brought into the Sasquatch world. So in Sasquatch Island, my Facebook group, we have strict rules we will adhere to will be in there. And one of them is there will be no talk or comments about the woo-woo side, the cloaking, portal jumping, different dimensions, UFO flying, because I am the captain, as I was a captain on commercial fish boats for decades. And I run my Facebook group like a captain. And if you can't adhere to that, you get blocked. It means I go into your profile, I pull your picture, your name and everything, and then I post a picture of you with a Sasquatch sitting on a toilet laughing, a painting, and you've been flushed from the group of Sasquatch Island. That's how tough I run it. And that's why when people try to convert or me into the other side of the realm of Sasquatch that I know nothing of and never experienced, I tell them, I'm a Christian, but I got no time for those holy rollers coming to shove a Bible sideways down my throat and try to convert me from the heathen pagan I am. I'm not. I'm a Christian. And that's where Sasquatchology is the same. You got to have hardliners like me that say, no, there's a wall bigger than Trump could ever build between the critterists and the woo-woos. And that's where I stand.
I can see how you're, and it's fair enough. Like, I mean, you want to be clear, and you want to be, I guess, straightforward, and not have the woo woo. But like, I mean, I think that for some people, it is their experience, and you know, I think that yeah.
Don't try to chatter to me about it.
No. I'm not trying to chatter. I'm just trying to say that some people have that. Penny, did you have any other questions for Tom?
No, thank you very much. I'm done. I have no more questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Penny, for calling today. Thank you. Okay, so I have a comment here from Carol. She says here, oh, okay. So I have a comment from Carol. She says, I think Sunbow is in the interior, not in Vancouver Island. I think she was commenting on what Penny had called in about. But I myself, again, I'm not familiar with Sunbow, but it seems that maybe he's from the interior. So that doesn't say anything to you, eh? No. Okay, so this I'm just going to see if anybody else wants to call in and they have a question, they can do so. But I have an interesting question here. I have a question here from AML, and it says, "Have you ever come across tufts of Sasquatch hair while out in the woods?"
Couple times, stinky. I just leave it.
Yeah.
I don't want that smell on me. It's just bush is bush. It's come across it, see it. It's like I say, when I got together with Peggy and she introduced me to television, Finding Bigfoot in a Remote Control back in 2014, roughly. And we got together in '08. I come down in Kent, Washington, got introduced to the TV shows. I never watched them. And to me, it was seeing a Sasquatch is like a white deer, white moose, white bear. Spend enough time in the bush, you're going to see a Sasquatch. Like you'll see a white animal, possibly. And mind you, I've never seen a white moose or a white deer, but I did see a white bear three times up in Princess Royal Island in the Kitasoo tribal territories of coastal British Columbia. It's called the spirit bear. It's Commodity. So to me, Sasquatches, they're just there. And coming across their hair, their tracks. Back in the day, if I had the P1000 Nikon camera with the built-in telephoto lens that I have now and have had for the last 3 years, we wouldn't be discussing if there might be a Sasquatch. We'd already have the documentation from the times I seen them when I was in the bush, and I would have got some good close-ups. And that's how I am with Sasquatch. It's just another critter, and there's.
Okay, well, I'm kind of wondering, because Sasquatch is, I mean, they're more than a critter, I would think, because they're much more, they're definitely a different, they're not just some dog or something. Like I would say that, the Dzoonakwa definitely has a higher place, definitely higher than humans, for sure. So that's just my own opinion. Yeah.
The perfect human.
They're the perfect human. So yeah, so they're not critters.
But here's something to think about.
Yeah.
When you look at all the native tribes and you study about Sasquatch and the relationship with native tribes, and you see that a lot of the tribes' translation to English for the name of their Sasquatch, cannibal woman, cannibals of the giant, cannibals of the mountains, cannibals of the bush, just the big cannibals. Well, if the North American Indians are telling us that their name has cannibal in it, that's the hammer hitting the nail on the head telling you what a Sasquatch is. Because when a coyote pack, a wolf pack, a bear, a cougar eats a human, we don't call them cannibal. We call them a human killer. And then we usually go kill it. Well, Sasquatches, the Indians know that if they ate one of our tribe members, they were termed cannibal. It tells you they're human. You can only be called a cannibal if you don't eat your own species. And a lot of people, they come in here and they look at Biggie and they go, a human? That, right there, I know they have poorly developed frontal lobes. They're dumb, concrete city human. Because if you look at, let's say I have a porthole and I go back to England 800 years ago, and I grab a Caucasian off the banks of the Thames River, and I say, come with this Indian, you're going to jump in my porthole. Boom. Where are we? What are those? Oh, those are people that live in Africa. We're in the Congo, but it's 800 years ago. And I grab them and we jump in the porthole. Whoa, 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 what's that? Well, those are Aborigines. We're in what country that is going to be called Australia. Let's jump in the porthole again. Boom. What are these? They're actually Asian or Chinese. We're in Singapore or downtown Beijing. And all of a sudden, boom. Oh, what are those? Oh, those are blonde-haired, fair-skinned Scandinavians. And those are females. Well, I'll be darned. And all of a sudden, poof. Oh, what's this? Well, these are Inuit in northern North America. And the next thing you know, my Thames English, this person is now collapsing, convulsing because he's in shock, because he didn't see that much variation of the human species ever 800 years ago. So when they walk in the door over there and come here and see Biggie, or they see a Sasquatch, they can't fathom that they're human. Why aren't they human? 2 arms, 2 legs, bipedal, got a nose like us, doesn't have the biker beard, mind you, because the Sasquatches in the Pacific Northwest and Omaha Indian Reserve are like any other Indian, very limited facial hair. And you never ever see Indians, true thoroughbred Indians like me with biker beards or looking like we came out of Kentucky moonshine camp. No, because we can't grow big beards as Sasquatch can. And that's one of the things you do to separate your bunk and BS. When you look at pictures or sketches, especially sketches, and the Sasquatch has very limited, looks like an Indian at the casino pulling slots with that scraggly looking little hair on its face. Pathetic. He thinks that's a beard. It's funny. That's what a Sasquatch face is like. So when you look at Sasquatch, you got to put yourself in their bare feet. They're just a bigger, hairier human than us with nocturnal vision. So nocturnal vision. How come that humans that live in the Himalayas and the Andes above 10, 12,000 feet have larger lung capacities than us? Because the air is thinner. Evolution made their lungs bigger to live in where they live. How come the Inuit in the northern hemisphere of the world have larger livers? Well, it's to deal with high oil content in the food that you eat from whales, walrus, and seals. So humans are always in evolutionary flux. That's why we have different colored skin and hair and different features and noses, and the list goes on. How come no one wants to call him what he is? The perfect human, as I've explained and taught with you tonight on this video cast.
Yeah. So it's definitely you make a good comment and a good question about that, and it's true. I guess we haven't really looked at it. I think that science is really stuck with trying to sort of find the so-called missing link, and they don't consider the other versions as important. So that's a good question, food for thought. And so we're drawing to a close our meeting tonight, but I wanted to sort of take a moment to ask you, because I don't really get a chance to ask this, but we've talked about North America, Australia. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Yeti? A little bit more about that, and how they relate to what we would call the Dzoonakwa?
People like to go down the path of Yeti as being on the branch of Gigantopithecus blacki. Mm-hmm. And they said that with the Bering land bridge between the ice ages, and now they're starting to see that we hairless bipedals have been on the Americas for possibly 2 or 3 ice age cycles. So, getting in the hundreds of thousands of years. So if camels came over from Asia, and horses and giant sloths and woolly mammoth and mastodon and saber-toothed tiger, well, use your frontal lobes. Of course, the Sasquatch has walked across. And then next week, we're going to be on the 5th, we're going to be talking about the little people, what we call Bokwus. Well, that, to me, I think is Homo florensis. We know that as miniature human, the Hobbit, made it in the cover of National Geographic with a huge editorial some 5 years ago, because the evidence came in, conclusive proof that this Homo florensis, this short little 3-4 foot human, was 10,000 years ago in what we know as Indonesia. Give your head a shake. They're still around. Indonesians are filming them, talking about them, and giving us casts like they do with Sasquatches, just that they're little feet. Those same little feet impressions and the little people are seen here in North America. How did they get here? Well, I don't think they came through a portal or flew with a UFO. I think they came like the Sasquatches, the camels, the horses, the woolly mammoth, and others from Asia. They came over the land. And, it's take a cookie sheet, put a big dry sponge in it, pour water into the cookie sheet, grab your sponge and push it down and lift it up. The cookie sheet is almost dry. That's what it was like when there was a kilometer, quarter-mile thick ice throughout the northern hemisphere. The oceans were a lot lower than they were. And now with side sonar, just go to Google Earth and look at side sonar impressions of Vancouver Island, central, northern British Columbia coast, Alaska, Washington State. You'll see the Columbia River goes, the scarring from the river, the canyon, is out there in about 6,000 feet of water. So it shows you how much ice had retained and sucked up all that water of the oceans of the planet. So the land bridge is not like those scientists are trying to explain to us as Aleutian Islands. That was all ice. It was south of the Aleutian Islands where the animals and Sasquatches and what we'll be talking about next week, Homo florensis, possibly Bokwus. That's how they got to the Americas.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you mentioned the talk we're having next week. So we're sort of like, leading into that. So don't miss our second part in the series next week to talk with Tom about the Bokwus. And these are the little people, as he's mentioned. And we get a chance to explore more on that topic next week. But I wanted to say thank you, Tom, for coming tonight and gracing us with your presence and providing us with such an interesting topic tonight. And I definitely learned a lot because, like I said, I haven't learned as much because I've relied on much more, I guess, more Western approach, whereas the approach that you have is coming from an actual ancestral and cultural approach. And it gives us a very, very different perspective. Experience, absolutely, and experience. So I think that really gives us a much more global vision of what about this topic. And I think it gives people a different perspective on the on our cousin, basically, And it seems that we have a lot more to learn about the Dzoonakwa and as well to appreciate. And I think we should really pattern ourselves, especially in terms of coming into balance with nature. I think that one of the things that we often talk about on this channel is how we can become a better human. And one of the things that are happening on this planet now is that the energies are shifting. And so we're moving forward to becoming a better human. And I think that this is one of the first steps. So I want to say thank you so much, Tom, for coming to be with us tonight. I'm really, really excited that we had a chance to talk. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much. Yalakasla, in my language. Alakasla. Go in peace.
Alakasla, go in peace. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, once again, for joining us this evening. Don't forget to like and subscribe and to become a member. And if you're joining us for the first time, join us on meetup.com at the Starseeds and Lightworkers Collective. And this way you can get all the information about the different topics we talk about each week. And so I want to say thank you again for being with us. And we look forward to seeing you next week for part 2. Good night. Take care.